At the age of 60, Anthony Perkins, the famous gay actor, revealed shocking truths about his love story with Tab Hunter. Can you imagine it? Two silver screen icons, two talented young men, swept into a passionate but tragic romance, in the heart of a harsh Hollywood, full of prejudices and dark secrets. Join me as we delve deeper, analyzing the hidden pains, the sweet moments mixed with bitterness, and discovering valuable lessons about love, courage, resilience, and the journey of self-discovery in a society riddled with invisible constraints. First, let's turn back the clock to the 1950s, a decade when Hollywood was at the peak of its glamour, with stars shining brightly like stars in the California night sky. But behind that dazzling light, dear listeners, were dark shadows, secrets that had to be hidden to survive, to avoid being rejected by society, to not lose the career they had built with blood, sweat, and tears. Anthony Perkins, or Tony as he was known, was born on April 4th, 1932, in New York, into a family with an artistic tradition. His father, Osgood Perkins, was a famous stage and film actor who appeared in the classic film Scarface in 1932, but he was a distant father, often absent due to work, leaving Tony to grow up with his mother, Janet Esselstyn Rain, a strong woman but sometimes harsh, even physically abusing her son after her husband's sudden death in 1937, when Tony was only 5 years old. Tony's childhood was a series of psychological traumas, with fears of his parents' divorce, jealousy toward his father over his mother, and then self-blame when his father died of a heart attack. He once shared in a 1983 interview with People magazine that he loved his mother but also wished his father would die so he could have her to himself. And when it happened, he felt like he had committed a sin. His mother, working as a stage manager, pushed Tony into the world of art from an early age, but controlled him harshly, leading to shyness, sensitivity, and occasional rebellion in his teenage years. Tony found escape in the theater, where he could become someone else, forgetting his personal pains. He decided to become an actor greater than his father to make up for that loss. At the age of 20, Tony made his big screen debut with the film The Actress in 1953, alongside Spencer Tracy, though the film was not a commercial success. But his role as the shy Quaker pacifist in Friendly Persuasion in 1956 earned him his first Oscar nomination, turning him into a rising star, with his elegant appearance, deep eyes, and shy smile that captivated many girls. However, deep inside, Tony was a gay man, and in that era, when homosexuality was seen as a sickness, a sin, a threat to national security during the McCarthyism witch hunts, he had to live in the shadows, hiding himself to protect his career. Now, let's talk about Tab Hunter, Tony's destined lover. Tab, whose real name was Arthur Kelm, was born on July 11, 1931, in New York, but grew up in California after his parents' divorce. He was the ideal American boy, golden blonde hair, blue eyes, a muscular build like an athlete, with a radiant smile and masculine charm that made studios compete for him. Tab had no initial acting experience, but his looks opened the doors to Hollywood. He debuted with Track of the Cat in 1954, then rose to fame with Battle Cry in 1955, and Damn Yankees in 1958. Not only acting, Tab was also a successful singer, with the hit Young Love topping the Billboard charts in 1957, selling over 1 million copies. But like Tony, Tab was also gay, and had to hide it under the facade of the perfect guy, publicly dating female stars like Natalie Wood or Debbie Reynolds, dates arranged by the studios to fool the press and fans. Tab was once arrested at a gay party in 1950, and Confidential magazine used that to blackmail him, but he luckily survived without his career being destroyed. These two men, Tony and Tab, met on a hot summer day in 1956 at the pool of the Chateau Marmont Hotel, a legendary spot in Hollywood where stars often gathered, relaxed, and hid their personal secrets. Tab recounted in his memoir Tab Hunter Confidential in 2005 that he was swimming to cool off after a long day of filming, and then he saw Tony sitting by the pool with friends, including Venetia Stevenson, a beautiful actress. Venetia introduced them, and immediately there was a strange attraction, as if fate had arranged it. Tony was filming Friendly Persuasion at the time, while Tab was on the rise with action roles. They started talking, sharing about work, the pressures of Hollywood, and soon after, secret meetings began to blossom. Imagine that scene. Dear listeners, under the brilliant California sunshine, two young, ambitious men finding in each other a safe haven amid the storm of social prejudices. Tony, with his shy, profound, and somewhat melancholic personality from childhood traumas, was drawn to Tab's confidence, warmth, and masculinity. Tab saw in Tony a true soulmate, someone who truly understood the hidden fears, the pressures of hiding oneself to survive in the harsh entertainment industry. Their romance bloomed in secret, like a wild flower in the desert, beautiful but fragile. They went out together, but always disguised under the cover of dates with women, double dates arranged by the studios for photos, to be published in newspapers, deceiving the public. Tab once said, "We would go to dinner with the girls, get photographed, then sneak out the back door and go home together." So romantic, but also so painful, isn't it, dear listeners? They shared sweet moments, secret trips to Rome or remote places, evenings watching movies together in private apartments, even Tab trying to teach Tony water skiing, horseback riding, and driving, because when Tony first arrived in Hollywood, he didn't know how to drive and had to hitchhike to the set. Tony, with his dry humor, endearing shyness, and sharp intelligence, made Tab laugh endlessly, and Tab said that Tony was a special part of his life's journey. They complemented each other perfectly. Tab was the radiant sunshine, warm. Tony was the gentle rain, profound, and together they created a colorful rainbow in the gray sky of prejudices. But tragedy began to creep into their romance like dark clouds before a storm. Hollywood in the 50s was a place full of homophobia, where being exposed could destroy a career in an instant. Tony's Paramount Studio and Tab's Warner Brothers both knew about the relationship, or at least suspected, but they strictly forbade it, forcing the two to appear publicly with women, to hide under the straight facade. Tab had been arrested at a gay party, and Confidential magazine used it for blackmail, threatening to reveal. Tony was rumored to be too sensitive, too feminine, and endured slurs from colleagues, producers seeing him as a risk because he didn't fit the brutish masculine image in westerns or sports films. That pressure made their romance tense, full of arguments about careers, about how to cope with the outside world. Tab wanted to live a bit more authentically, but Tony, with fears from childhood and ambitions to be a big star, was always cautious, always worried about the consequences. And then, the peak of the tragedy happened with the film Fear Strikes Out in 1957, a truly shocking and heartbreaking story. Tab had played the lead in the television version of this story, about a baseball player with psychological disorders, and he loved the role so much that he dreamed of starring in the film version. Tab even told Tony about that dream and asked his studio to buy the rights. But Warner Brothers didn't act in time. Then one day, Tony casually announced that Paramount had bought the rights, and he would play the lead. Tab felt deeply betrayed, like a knife to the heart. He wrote in his memoir, "I felt deceived, betrayed. That changed our relationship forever." Tony, perhaps due to personal ambition, wanting to prove himself after supporting roles, didn't realize the pain, Or maybe he thought it was just normal professional competition. He performed brilliantly, receiving critical acclaim, but their romance began to crack irreparably. By 1959, just before Tony filmed Psycho, the classic film that made his name with the role of Norman Bates, they officially broke up. Tab said the main reason was pressure from the studios, from society. But clearly, that betrayal was the final straw, shattering trust. They only met a few times after that, once on a film set in 1971 and another in 1982, when both had aged, but old memories flooded back, bringing regret and torment. After the breakup, each person's life took different paths, but tragedy still pursued them. Tab continued his career, but gradually was pushed to the sidelines as times changed, his boy-next-door look no longer in fashion. He lived single for a while, then found true love with Alan Glazer, his life partner for over 30 years, producing films together. Tab came out as gay in 2005 through his memoir, Tab Hunter Confidential, becoming an icon for the LGBT community, and passed away in 2018 at the age of 86, leaving a legacy of belated courage. And Tony? Oh, his story is even more tragic, dear listeners. After Psycho in 1960, Tony became an icon with the role of Norman Bates, a schizophrenic psychopath, a role where director Alfred Hitchcock exploited Tony's sensitivity, traumas, and natural feminine gestures to create the classic character. But that success was also a curse, as he was typecast into psychopathic roles, hard to escape. To avoid typecasting, Tony bought out his contract with Paramount and fled to Europe, filming in France, Mexico, Greece, from comedies to romances, even being pursued by female stars like Ingrid Bergman or Brigitte Bardot, but he rejected them all to pursue secret gay relationships. In Europe, Tony had another romance with Grover Dale, a talented dancer lasting from 1964 to 1971. They met in 1959 while working on the musical Green Willow and began living together, hosting parties, becoming a model for the gay community after the Stonewall riots in 1969, the uprising that marked the beginning of the modern LGBT movement. Grover and Tony had an open relationship, free but full of love and mutual support. However, under increasing social pressure and inner fears from childhood traumas, Tony decided to change, seeking conversion therapy, a horrific thing at the time seen as a cure. He met psychologist Mildred Newman, who convinced him that homosexuality was stunted development due to an over-controlling mother, and advised him to have relations with women, even undergoing electroshock therapy to become straight. Those therapies caused Tony more trauma, aging him prematurely, with health issues like facial paralysis and prolonged anxiety. In 1972, at the age of 41, Tony met Barry Berenson, a 25-year-old photographer, sister of actress Marissa Berenson, at a party. Barry had been a huge fan of Tony since childhood, and they quickly started a relationship, living together after just 6 months, and Barry became pregnant right after. They married in 1973, had 2 sons, Osgood Oz Perkins, now a horror film director, and Elvis Perkins, a musician. On the surface, the marriage was stable, happy, lasting until Tony's death. But according to documents and biographies like Split Image by Charles Weinkoff in 1996, Tony still maintained secret gay relationships, keeping a separate room in a hotel to meet male lovers, and Barry knew but accepted it because of her love for him. In the 70s and 80s, Tony continued a diverse career, from Broadway theater to horror films like Psycho 2 in 1983, which he even directed the third part in 1986, though it received mixed reviews. He also produced the film The Last of Sheila in 1973 alongside Stephen Sondheim, a close friend with rumored romantic ties. But Tony's health declined, and in 1990 he discovered he had HIV through a secret blood test that the hospital leaked to the tabloid press. The news that Anthony Perkins had AIDS spread, shocking his family when they read it in the papers. He kept it secret for 2 years, until the age of 60, when he publicly disclosed it in a statement before dying in 1992 from AIDS complications. In that statement, Tony said, "I have learned more about love, selflessness, and human understanding from the people I have met in this great adventure with AIDS than from the cutthroat competitive world in which I have spent my life." These are the shocking revelations we mentioned at the beginning of the program, dear listeners. Although Tony did not directly mention Tab in his final statement, through Tab's memoir and later documents, we know that romance was an indelible part of his life, a beautiful but painful memory representing the sacrifices that generation had to endure. Barry, Tony's wife, died tragically in the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks while on American Airlines Flight 11 that crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. Now join me in analyzing deeper the tragedy of these two men's love, not just a personal romance, but a tragedy of an entire era of Hollywood and American society in the 50s. Hollywood back then was a golden prison, where studios controlled every aspect of stars' lives, from image to personal relationships. Homosexuality was seen as a moral crime linked to communism in the McCarthy era, with witch hunts causing thousands to lose jobs. Tony and Tab truly loved each other, passionately, but they had to live in constant fear of magazines like Confidential, fear of studios firing them, fear of fans turning away, fear of legal prosecution. Those double dates with Natalie Wood or Venetia Stevenson were not just covers, but mental torture, forcing them to act every day. The betrayal over the Fear Strikes Out role was not just personal. It reflected the fierce competition in the industry, where love had to yield to ambition, where trust was easily destroyed by external pressures. Tony, with traumas from his dominant mother leading to an Oedipus complex, always craved acceptance, leading to his decisions for conversion therapy and marriage to Barry, choices that made him suffer more, but also his way to try to integrate into society. Tab was braver, but still waited until 2005 to come out, after being threatened with exposure. Their tragedy is the tragedy of thousands of gay people at that time, loving in the shadows, parting in pain, living double lives. But this story also inspires deeply, dear listeners. It reminds us of society's progress. Today, the LGBT community has more rights, same-sex marriage is recognized, and stars like Zachary Quinto can live authentically without fear. Even a film about Tony and Tab is being produced by J. Abrams and Zachary Quinto, titled Tab and Tony, based on Tab's memoir, to retell this secret love story for the younger generation. Dear listeners, at the age of 65 and above, you have witnessed so many changes in the world, from the prejudiced 50s to now, with more freedom. The story of Tony and Tab may remind you of friends, loved ones you once knew, the secrets they had to hide, the pains they endured alone. It teaches us that true love is always worth cherishing, even at a high cost, and that the courage to come out is the key to changing the world. Let us reflect on their journey, on lessons from the past, and love each other more, understand more in daily life. Thank you for listening to today's audio blog program. If you like it, please like, subscribe to the channel, and share to receive more touching stories like this. See you in the next episode with other secrets from old Hollywood. Wishing you a good day.